Newest streaming service show to blow up the internet is Heated Rivalry, a HBO Max show directed and written by Jacob Tierney, based on the book of the same name by Rachel Reed. It follows the years-long secret affair between rival hockey players Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. I wanted to read the book before watching the show so I could sit and then torture whoever watches it with me and be like, in the book, just sort of was like, hey, why don't I make a video out of it because it's a popular topic at the moment. So if for some reason you don't want to read the book because you have a life and you don't want to read a like nearly 400-page book that's mostly just two guys hooking up, then don't worry, I'm going to go through everything that happens. I'm only going to be talking about the book Heated Rivalry, which is what the season 1 is based on. So season 2 is going to be based on the book following Heated Rivalry, and I'm not talking about that, so there won't be any spoilers for future seasons of the show. So you're safe. I mean, at least I hope so. Also, it's really important to me that we do a poll in the comments and you let me know which of the covers you do prefer, whether you prefer the absolutely beautiful original cover or this like new cover that's come out, which like, it's lame. We don't like that cover. So this book takes place over many years and the book does a really good thing, which is super nice, and I'm going to be using it in the video. At the beginning of every scene, it does mention where the scene takes place, what month and what year, so you can kind of be grounded in the scene. So I'm going to be using those headers for this video as well, and hopefully you can sort of keep track of where everything is, what's happening, where we are in this magnificent timeline. October 2016, Montreal. So we start with a prologue, as most books start with, and this prologue is taking place in the middle of a game, and the Montreal Voyageurs are losing to the Boston Bears, and Shane Hollander is pissy about it, and his team is down 4-1 with 8 minutes remaining. So a lot of his anger is pointed towards Ilya, who is considered the most hated man in Montreal. Okay, so this bit took me out a little bit because it's like, if you voted on who everybody hates most, it would come up with this like hockey player that's really not done anything wrong other than being good at the sport. It wouldn't be like some convicted criminal that committed some heinous crime. It would be this like hockey player because he's good. Okay. Montreal Voyageurs and the Boston Bears have kind of had this like rivalry for centuries, and these two players that came in around the same time have only like personified this kind of rivalry that we've got going on. Shane was born in Canada and he's lived there his whole life. Mother Yuna immigrated from Japan before his birth, and Ilya has lived in Russia his whole life, but he stays in the US during the season, and then for the holidays he goes back to Russia. So we do then get to see our first interaction between the two. I was kind of hoping to be a little bit bitchier. But it does get bitchier as the book goes on, so like, don't stress. Also, if you can hear a child screaming outside, my neighbors have like a little jumping castle in their front yard, and the kids are always screaming. I mean, they're not screaming at like 1 in the morning, but I don't really want to film at 1 in the morning. So their first interaction that we see is Ilya going up to Shane and being like, hey, you having a good night? Shane's response is, fuck you. And after this interaction, Ilya does wink at Shane, but we're meant to believe that nobody is expecting these two to be hooking up. He just like winks at him. But I guess in ice hockey you have a lot of equipment on, so maybe no one can see it. I actually don't know a lot about ice hockey. I played it once when I was like 15 and I was really shit. So that's kind of where my knowledge goes. And then the game ends and Boston Bears win. So after the match, Shane is trying to leave because he's pissed, but a reporter does hound him and he does have to do an interview. And the interviewer's like, oh, I was just talking to Ilya. Do you want to know what he said? Shane responds something lame like, oh, I bet it was something nice. And then the reporter's like, he said he wished that you'd been playing tonight. We then cut to Shane. He goes to this 3-story building that he owns, and it's kind of in like the middle of nowhere. His internal dialogue is telling us that he bought this place because he wanted somewhere like private and secret. And it's at this point that I was sort of just like, okay, so really this could either be he bought this place because that's where he likes to hook up with this guy that we know he's hooking up with, or he bought it because he's like a serial killer and this is where he hides his body. Like, honestly, could go either way, and either way I wouldn't really be shocked. But yes, he goes to this building that he owns and he's like waiting in a room, and then a door knocks and he opens it and it's Ilya. Which, if you didn't know the plot of this book going in, you might have been like quite shocked. You know, obviously going in I knew that, but I still thought it was like a fun little prologue. It's like, here's the rivalry. Oh my god, they're hooking up in this random building in the middle of nowhere. Oh my god. They then like proceed to hook up, and that's the end of the prologue. Most scenes end with them hooking up. December 2008, Regina. So we then jump back 8 years, and it's the, try not to look at my notes, the Junior Hockey World Championship. And both Shane and Ilya at this time are 17, so that actually makes them eligible for the NHL. So they're both trying to get a good draft pick. So kind of the buzz in the media, which has already begun around these two players, is okay, who's going to be the #1 draft pick and what team are they going to go on to? Because the rivalry has already begun. The media is already hounding this. So they kind of latched onto these two 17-year-olds pretty quickly. Part of me is like, that's so stupid. That's that's not a thing that would happen. But then another part of me is like, no, the media is really evil. I can 100% see that happening. So the two are obviously very aware of the other, but they've never actually met. And while Ilya is training, he does look up in the stands and thinks that he sees Shane watching with his parents. After the training, Ilya goes outside the stadium to have a smoke. He's a bad boy, so he smokes. And this is how Shane decides to speak to the love of his life for the first time. Like, I know he doesn't know that this random guy that's like his rival is going to be the love of his life, but I'm aware. And so on his behalf, I do cringe and die a little bit that this is how he chose to talk to him for the first time. So Shane goes up to Ilya and he's like, you can't smoke there. There's a lot of moments in this book where you're just like, Shane, why? They then like have a kind of shitty forced little conversation, and then Shane leaves, and I was kind of like, okay, so is Shane now going to look for someone else he can tell off? Like, is he looking for some bored parent who's like littering so he can be like, hey, you can't litter there? He actually just goes back to his parents and tells them what happened, and they're like, oh, what was Ilya like? And he's like, bit of a dick. Says the person who went up to him and was like, you can't smoke there. Like, okay, bro. We then jump to the end of the, God, I have to try and remember it. What was it? The World Junior Hockey Championship. And Russia end up winning. And we're told that throughout pretty much every game that the two ended up meeting, Ilya would like wink at Shane. So again, it's kind of just like, oh, so like no one saw this coming? Or is that just something that ice hockey players do? They just like wink at each other. I would say that I watch a little bit of other sports, and as far as I have seen, I don't think players just like wink at each other. Although like I watch AFL and sometimes like players smack each other's bums, so I guess I can't really talk, can I? Hey. June 2009, Los Angeles. So Ilya does get the first draft pick spot, and obviously Shane's pissy about it. And I think that Shane probably spends like 50% of this book pissy and like 50% of it horny. Shane has become a little bit obsessed with Ilya. He's been like researching him online and everything. So he's now just like a massive creep as well. And he's actually really surprised to find out that they're really similar in that their goals are the same, and both of them share the goal of wanting to become the best hockey player in the world. I'm shocked that he's shocked by that. So then at the draft picking, the ceremony, I have no idea how they do it. Apparently there's like some ceremony thing, I think, and they get onto their team. So obviously Shane gets picked by the Montreal Voyageurs and Ilya gets picked by the Boston Bears. They have to like take a picture together. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm assuming this is like some event. And so they're like, oh my gosh, they're on rival teams and they're already being pitched as rivals. Let's like take a picture of them together. And Shane gets pissy and like frustrated that he can't sleep. So you know what you do when you can't sleep? You go to the hotel's gym, like 1 a.m, of course. Who doesn't do that? He goes to the gym and he's like just walking on the treadmill trying to like calm down, and then someone gets on the treadmill beside him, and of course it's Ilya. And I actually like this scene because Ilya starts to like put his treadmill up faster, and then Shane like starts to put his faster, and then they're both just like slowly putting their treadmills faster until they're like fully sprinting at like 1 a.m in this gym. It's like the most realistic thing that happens in this book. Shane is the person to give up first, and he like collapses against the wall, and then Ilya does the same, and then Ilya does offer Shane his drink bottle. As they're passing the drink bottle, their fingers touch. As much as I really like kind of wish I hated this book and could just spend the whole video shitting on it, I have to admit that I can't lie to myself. Like, when those fingers touched on that drink bottle, the world was never the same. Shane's kind of like freaking out about it because he obviously felt the planet shifting, and he was like, oh my god, like this is my true love, this is the love of my life. And when I first met him, I told him he couldn't smoke there. And then like while he's frustrated, he then watches Ilya like squirt the water into his mouth from the drink bottle. So he's definitely having a little moment there in that corner. Ilya does leave, and as he's leaving he says, oh, you'll be seeing a lot of me soon. I'm like, he's either aware of the very gay panic this man is having, or he's completely oblivious, but either way he's trolling him really good. December 2009, Ottawa. Okay, so this next bit is like not super relevant, but it made me giggle, so I want to share it with you. It's New Year's and Ilya's like celebrating with his teammate, the Black Eyed Peas, perform, which I feel like is the author's way of being like, look, it's 2009, the Black Eyed Peas are relevant. I was also like reading the scene as if they were just like out on like the lawn of their hotel or like nearby their hotel just like celebrating, and then it's just like, hey, the Black Eyed Peas rock up. It was just like the imagery I was having was really weird. Anyway, after the Black Eyed Peas finished performing, Ilya like taps out. He's like, I'm done now. Like the Black Eyed Peas perform. Goes to his room to be emo. We then cut to Shane, who's also like on his bed being emo, and he's thinking about Ilya. And it's been like what, 6 months since the like drink bottle incident, but he's still thinking about it, like, oh my god, I like wanted to kiss him, and he's freaking out. Also, it's mentioned like that he had a girlfriend at that time, but he was like, oh, I don't care because like I'm gonna break up with her soon, so it's fine, right? We find out that he did break up with her, so she was so irrelevant that I completely forgot. And since the breakup, he's thinking about how he's been like noticing guys more, and he's like really confused. And anyway, he decides that the way he wants to end his year is laying in his bed alone, touching himself to thoughts of Ilya. I feel so gross saying that, but I feel like it's like relevant, but I also just, I don't want to say it. Like, I just feel like I need to go touch grass. July 2010, Toronto. So it's been over a year since the draft, and neither have actually played an NHL game yet, which I was like shocked by, but apparently that's normal. I like looked it up, so the Google AI, it's always correct, right? But despite having not actually played a single game of NHL, the media is still like buzzing around these like young men, and they're actually both offered an endorsement with CCM, but having like signed the contract, Shane was not aware that Ilya was also in this, so that's kind of dodgy. They're taken to like some small rink out in the suburbs, and they like skate around and like take videos and pictures, and they're wearing makeup. Ilya goes up to Shane and's like, you look pretty like a doll. Shane is pissy about this because he doesn't like when people say he's pretty like a doll, but he's extra pissy because he's pissy about the fact that he liked when Ilya told him that. But I will mention that it does state that they laughed sometimes, and it was hard for the people to get footage because they were like giggling and having fun so much so that something that wasn't kind of like fucked up and toxic did actually happen. After they finish the photo shoot, Shane rushes to the shower because obviously he doesn't want to be in there at the same time with Ilya, but then while he's in the shower, who would walk in but Ilya? And he's naked. He's butt naked. My cat just walked in and she gave me like the worst look. She's like, get the fuck out of my house. I probably didn't need to specify that he was naked when he walked into the shower, but just so you're aware, both of them are like, they're naked. And Shane's like staring at Ilya's ass, and he gets like a boner from it. And of course Ilya notices, and Shane's like, oh no, I was like thinking about something else. I don't know how to explain what happens next without being so embarrassed and ashamed. I think about it every time I try to get to sleep for the rest of my life. I'm just gonna say, so Ilya touches his dick. He like, should I even do this video? Is it even worth it? It's like majority of the scenes I don't feel comfortable talking about, so is there any point? So yeah, he like starts to like do things, and Shane's like, no, we can't do that here, and like freaks out. And then Ilya's just like, oh okay, and like walks out of the shower. They're like getting dressed, and Shane's like, can we just pretend that never happened? And Ilya's like, oh well, if that's what you want. And he like finishes getting dressed, and then as he's leaving, he's like, oh, what's your room number? So this brings us to the first quote that I'm gonna read out for you all. What is your room number? Rosanov asked. 1410, Shane said far too quickly. Rosanov's mouth twitched up. If I knock on door of room 1410 tonight, maybe around 9? Shane fought to keep his voice even. I might open the door. Rosanov smiled. I might knock. I love that like this is what like the third, fourth time they've spoken, and it's kind of just like, come to my room. And it's like, okay, this thing that goes on for so many years that's so huge and becomes such a big thing started out kind of just like stumbling into it, like not even really much thought, just kind of like, okay. So anyway, Shane's like freaking out in his room. He's feeling like unhinged, like what the fuck am I doing? There's a knock on his door and he opens it. So they then hook up, and after they hook up, Shane's like, oh, was that like your first time with a guy? And Ilya's like, no, like I was hooking up with my coach's son back in Russia. And it's like, okay. I will say that obviously this is the first like sexual interaction that we do see between the two, and we really do see very quickly that there is definitely like a power imbalance between the two. Ilya is definitely experienced, knows what he's doing, is very forceful, and Shane is a lot more like docile, not really sure what he's doing. I do think at points in this book the build up to some of the scenes is not what I would call completely consensual, and this kind of leads into some of the concerns and I guess criticism that this book gets because it is written by a seemingly straight woman. I don't want to obviously like confirm this person's gender identity or sexuality or anything because that's not my place. This is seemingly what they are presenting as, and so I'm just going off the information that's available. And as a result, some queer men are kind of frustrated about this because this is written by, again, a seemingly straight women. It sort of does feel a little bit like it's fetishizing the relationship rather than like an organic relationship being built. And I will say some of these sex scenes definitely do feel very over the top, but I just read a lot of over the top like sex, and I'm not a queer man, so I don't really know when we're bordering on, okay, this is like fetishizing or this is just like kinky. Just keep that in mind and definitely, again, look up some Own Voices reviews because it's not my place to kind of speak on that. September 2010, Montreal. So we had like some NHL training competition. I was kind of like skimmed over. I don't even know what that is, but apparently it's enabled both of them to finally be able to play NHL games next season. Shane then sees an interview of Ilya on TV where he's like, I'm gonna kick 50 goals next year, and he's like really like hyping himself up, and Shane's just like okay, bro. Ilya keeps getting asked about Shane, and then he's always like, who? Poor Shane. Within a month, they do end up versing each other in the NHL, so their season begins, and within a month, they're already playing each other. And Montreal is hosting, and as always, Shane's parents are in attendance. His parents go to all of his games, which is just such a cute little, like, background little tidbit. I actually love his family. His parents are so cute. But Shane's parents notice that he's more nervous than normal, and they're like, are you okay? Like, why are you so nervous? And Shane's kind of just like, I'm always this nervous, guys. But we know he's nervous because he's his man. The match happens and the Bears end up losing, and Ilya's like pissed about this, but then he also gets a phone call that makes him extra pissed because it's from his brother who has asked for 20k after Ilya only recently gave him 10k. Ilya does give in and says, okay, I'm gonna give you this money, but this is the last time. And we all know that does not happen. January 2011, Nashville. Every season the NHL runs an All-Stars weekend, and it sounds really fun. They like make two teams of the best players and they like play a game and they do all these like activities. And this year they actually split the teams by the North Americans versus the European players, and they do this because of Shane and Ilya, which is just like, they're that obsessed with this rivalry that the entire way that they're doing their All-Stars is around making sure they're on different teams. It feels a little bizarre, but also when I think about what I'm actually reading, I'm like, okay, well, clearly this isn't the most realistic thing. There's an All-Stars party. Shane doesn't attend, but Ilya does, and he gets like drunk, and then he goes to his room and he's like on his bed drunk, and he's like, oh, I wonder what Shane's doing. We all know that Shane is a good boy, and it's the night before a game, and so he is definitely in bed. So we then go to the next day, and their match is in that evening, but in the morning they do have a press conference to attend. They did see each other the day before briefly in like the hotel lobby, but this is their first time like interacting this weekend. Shane is noticing that Ilya is kind of struggling with some of the questions that are being asked. He's kind of confused with the English, and so when Shane notices this, he does kind of like take over and kind of answer the question so that Ilya has time to kind of understand what is being asked. And Ilya notices this and he like rubs his little foot against Shane's foot under the table, and it's really cute. And during the press conference, it's definitely hyped up that like Shane and Ilya are very close in goals. So at this point, Ilya has 38 and Shane has 41. So it's like, who's gonna get the most goals of the season? And Shane's team does end up winning the All-Stars. And during the game, they do talk at one point. Ilya does go up to Shane and they do have a very important exchange, which I am gonna read out to you because it is very important. They stood in silence, watching the action on the ice. The loud music blared and the crowd cheered as another record was broken. Rosenov leaned down. His breath ghosted over Shane's ear when he said in a low voice, 12:21. So then, obviously, after the game, Shane does go to Ilya's room. It's so hard because it's like, so much of their relationship is built during these like steamy scenes. And I know that sometimes my mom watches my videos if my sisters make her watch them. Okay, so I'm just gonna try and make this as detached as possible. So as soon as Shane, I'm not even gonna look at the camera because I'm just like so embarrassed. So Shane walks in, and as soon as he walks in, Ilya like starts passionately kissing him. Ilya tells Shane to get on his knees. Shane gets on his knees, and I was a little bit shocked. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think that Shane would do it. Okay, I'm looking at the camera again. Stop it, it's all good. During them doing the things that they're doing, Shane kind of says he doesn't really want to have like sex. He doesn't want to take that next step because like he's trying to be quiet because he has like teammates across the hall. So he said like he doesn't want to have sex with a man for the first time when like he's trying to be quiet because he's got like people he's hiding it from like in the room across. So Ilya's like, okay, well, next time. And Shane's like, next time. It's said that he like says it in a like excited way. He's pissy about that, of course. And then they do exchange numbers, and oh my gosh, I just realized. So Shane's name in the phone is Jane and Ilya's name is Lily. I've read this book and I have written notes about this book. I only just realized that the names like match their real names, like Shane, Jane, Ilya, Lily. I only just realized that. This quote's really good. Who should I be? He asked as he picked up Ilya's phone from the dresser. Shannon? Jane, said Ilya. Jesus Christ, Hollander muttered as he typed. No, just Jane. So good. good. February 2011, Montreal. So the Boston Bears are actually playing in Montreal this weekend, but they're not actually versing Shane's team. Are they going to do something? Like, are they going to hook up again? But then he's like, no, I need to like end this. We can't be doing this. This is silly. Like, I need to end this thing. He then receives a text from Ilya asking for Shane's address, and Shane just replies no. Anyway, within a few minutes, he books a hotel room at the hotel that Ilya's at. He books a few floors up, so like he's not near the other team. As he's sending the text of the room number to Ilya, he is aware at least that he's being really unhinged. After the game, Ilya does come to Shane's room and they do hook up and they do have sex for the first time. I feel like I did a good job of just like saying that without much emotion and just being like, yes, they did the thing, they did the deed, and I didn't make it weird, but now I'm making it weird. Leading up to the scene where they do hook up is probably my favorite scene. I do understand that this is a really weird bit to be like my favorite part of the book because it really is so irrelevant, it doesn't matter. Shane's like wearing a like striped cashmere sweater. Ilya comes in like, I don't know, like a leather jacket or something cool because he's cool. And Ilya's like, oh my gosh, like I look so silly. I'm like just standing here like a cashmere sweater. I look ridiculous. And he's like freaking out. And then Ilya's like, you look nice. Someone explained to me why that's like my favorite scene of the book. After they hook up, as usual, neither of them really talk. No one hangs about. They just like go. Their relationship is literally just building through sex. June 2011, Las Vegas. So we now have the very first NHL awards night. When I got to this scene, I was like, I bet we're going to see the awards nights every year and shit is always going to hit the fan every awards night. But like, I think we see like one more after this. So as you can imagine, both of them are in the running for Rookie of the Year, and Shane does get the award. And so he's like really happy. He's like, oh my gosh, I won like the Rookie of the Year. But then he notices that Ilya has left the party. And so like instead of celebrating the fact that he won Rookie of the Year, he's like sad because like the man he's having sex with isn't here. He like leaves the party early and he goes to like look at the view from the top of the building. And of course Ilya is there and he's smoking. Even Shane is like thinking about how it's a cliche. I guess if they're aware, it's fine, right? Shane then goes and approaches Ilya because he's like sitting at the edge of like the building looking down smoking, and he like goes up and he starts to like act kind of apologetic about having won the award. This pisses Ilya off and he's like, you know, not everything is about you, mate. And Shane's kind of like digging for information like, okay, like what's wrong? Ilya kind of says how like now that the season's over he has to return home to Russia for the break. Shane goes to leave and then like Ilya grabs him like super dramatically and pulls him to him and kisses him passionately, and they're like kissing passionately on the top of this building. Ilya puts his tongue in Shane's mouth, and that's when Shane's like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, we can't do this, and he like freaks out. So like he's like super dramatic about it. It's a really heated dramatic scene, and like the idea that it's on top of this like high-rise building, ugh, iconic. Anyway, Ilya's just like, okay, well, I'll see you next season, and he leaves. And I really like that it's then mentioned that Shane waits like 5 to 10 minutes because he doesn't want to like get on the elevator and they get stuck with Ilya. Like, can you imagine? You press the elevator button before like Ilya's gone, so it opens, and then you've just both got to stand in the elevator. That really feels like something that would happen to Shane too. December 2013, 36,000 feet over Pennsylvania. So I'm just going to point this out in case you didn't notice, or you're like me and you're like horrendous with numbers. It's been 2 years and we don't really get a huge amount of information over what has happened, but seemingly not a lot. They've continued to hook up. They haven't really progressed like romantically. It's kind of still in a very similar position. It was kind of good to have that time skip because like I don't know how I would have coped with reading like multiple more sex scenes where like nothing is progressing romantically. The next thing that we get seems kind of irrelevant to like the rest of the book, and I'm going to assume that the character that this scene is about is like a protagonist in a future book, and I probably wouldn't even go over it, but I actually really like the scene, so I kind of want to like tell you about it because it's really cute. So Shane's like on the plane sitting next to this like newer player who's like really big and scary, and he's like terrified. He like hates flights. He's like freaking out. Ilya notices he's like holding a copy of Anne of Green Gables, and so Ilya's like, oh, you're like reading that, and he's like, oh, I always bring it with me on flights because it like helps me like calm down. You're telling me that this really big scary like hockey player reads Anne of Green Gable to make him feel safe on a plane? As Ilya is landing, Shane is actually doing an interview and he gets a text, and the text says, how many times can you come in an hour? I love that it goes from like this wholesome scene about a man reading Anne of Green Gables to how many times can you come in an hour. And in that time that we have been away, Shane has purchased his creepy 3-story building. Ilya's kind of thinking about how shocked he was that Shane had like gone to the effort of buying like a secret like hookup spot for them, because he was kind of thinking like, oh, he's probably gonna like end things. And then he like committed hardcore by buying a building, but I guess he's also like super rich. It's like as big of a commitment as if I like bought someone a hot dog. Anyway, when Ilya gets to his room, he like texts his room number to Shane, and then Shane's there within 20 minutes. And then we do get our first hookup scene since those 2 years. This time it is a little bit different, and Shane is acknowledging that he is noticing it's different. So we're kind of seeing, okay, so it wasn't really like that before. Like this is when things start to finally kind of do something other than like depraved sex, you know. Shane is like more determined to like please Ilya. He's very like concentrated on what he's doing. And then when Ilya finishes, he like yells out, which he's like never done before. He's always like quiet, but he like yells. There's more feeling to it. I'm really trying to make this a beautiful emotional thing, but it's like, is someone yelling out in sex really like that beautiful? I don't know. And then they do actually have a little conversation before Shane leaves. Ilya put his hand on the door, but before he pushed it open, he leaned down and kissed Hollander quickly on the mouth. Good night, Hollander. Good night. Ilya was grinning like an idiot for the entire cab ride back to his hotel. Oh, I think I said that they went to Ilya's room and that Ilya sent his number, but Shane must have sent his number. It's almost like it's really confusing of where they are, which scene, because there's so many scenes of them hooking up in each other's hotel room. February 2014, Sochi, Russia. So the Winter Olympics are here, and of course they're in Russia. When Shane arrives in Russia, he declines an offer from his teammates to come join them to get Macca's, which I could never. And then as soon as Shane gets to his room, he sends a text to Ilya and asks if he is having a good time, and he stays up very late into the night waiting for a reply that he never gets. We then jump to Ilya and we see that during this time that Shane was like waiting for a reply, he's like not having a great time himself. He's been putting up with his dad, which we meet his dad for the first time, and he's kind of forcing Shane to interact with lots of like government officials and stuff and people from his work. He's like a policeman. Ilya has no interest in these people. He doesn't agree with what they stand for, and he kind of hates everything about them basically. We are seeing that his dad is like quite forgetful because I work in aged care. I'm very like aware of these things, and so I very quickly picked up on the fact that, okay, it seems like his dad has dementia. Honestly, it's probably obvious to anybody reading that, but I just kind of wanted to flex a little bit. But Ilya is also frustrated because his dad is putting a lot of pressure on him and basically the entire country for them to succeed at the Olympics, but the team isn't going well and they've already basically gotten out of the running to actually win a medal, and so he's like feeling frustrated about that loss as well. We then cut to a scene where Ilya and Shane are both attending the Sweden versus Finland game. When Shane notices Ilya in the stands during the break, he like walks up and is like, hey. Okay, he doesn't do that, but I know it's shocking that he doesn't do that. Hey, like, how are you going and everything? You having a good time? And Ilya's like, not here. We don't talk here. We can't talk here. And he gets like kind of like flustered and he's just like, get the fuck away from me. Shane actually does do that. You know, this guy like freaking out, like, get the fuck away. He actually listens and does walk away. After he sits down, he does look back and sees that Ilya has left. So he really didn't want anything to do with his stanky ass that day. June 2014, Las Vegas. So we learned that Shane and Ilya have not hooked up since the Olympics, so that little awkward interaction kind of killed the mood, I guess. As far as I can tell, this is like the longest they've gone without hooking up. And this season, the Boston Bears actually win the championship, so they do win the Stanley Cup. Shane is like watching the TV and he starts to like tear up. Shane had been sick with jealousy, but had also been undeniably proud when he'd watched Ilya Rozanov lift the cup over his head and roar. There had been tears streaming down Rozanov's face as he'd hollered, and Shane had seen that this was more than just pride of being the best player on the best team in the NHL that year. Rozanov had proved something to somebody. It was also in this moment that I realized, like, this book has been going on for quite a few years at this point. I barely know anything about them. I, like, care, but why? It's actually, like, really weird how, like, seemingly bad this book is written, but how it still manages to work. The passage of time is so strong. And I think it works well because we do only get, like, these small snippets and then it's, like, months. Even though this book is taking a long time and we understand and can see that passage of time, we physically don't actually have to spend that long reading it. So it's like we get, like, the payoff without the prize. We then get another NHL awards night scene, and in this one they both have to present the most sportsman-like award. These two players were pitting against each other. Let's make them present the most sportsman-like award. Like, are they trying to kill them? Ilya is late and arrives with 50 seconds left before they have to go on stage. When they get on stage, Ilya then starts to kind of act up like this skit, which Shane is not aware about. And in the skit, let's take a selfie, and like puts his arm around Shane and takes like 6 selfies. And then like as he brings his arm back, he like caresses his neck. After leaving the stage, Shane then goes to the bathroom, but he doesn't lock the door. And then within a few seconds, Ilya goes in as well, because of course he does. He crowded Shane up against the wall. Shane was seething. He stared at Rozanov right in the eye and waited for him to make the first move. Well, Rozanov said. Well, what? He just the floor. You're not going to suck my dick. Shane's eyes narrowed. Fuck you, why don't you suck mine? He traced a finger over Shane's clenched jaw, so gently it made Shane close his eyes and part his lips involuntarily. Maybe ask nice. So yeah, as you can see, a really beautiful romance is blossoming. They then go back to the award ceremony, and Ilya was expecting to win the MVP award, but he did not. And so he's kind of like pissy about that. He gives Shane his room number. Shane like wants to keep Ilya waiting. Like he kind of wants to get some power back and be like, I'm going to make him wait. But he's like super horny, so he leaves pretty quickly. They then hook up, and it's definitely one of the more dominating of the scenes that the two have. Ilya orders Shane to get on the bed and like get naked and like play with himself while Ilya watches and drinks vodka. So this is another scene where I'm like, I don't know if this is like going into fetishization territory or it's just like kinky for the sake of being kinky. Like anyway, eventually Shane's like desperate for Ilya, so he like crawls along the bed to him, and they hook up, and both of them are quite vocal, which again is kind of not the usual for them. This night's also different because they actually end up chatting more than usual afterwards. They talk about like hockey and Shane like kind of tries to broach like a more personal subject and like asks whether he's going back to Russia for the summer, but Ilya kind of just changes the subject and doesn't really want to address the elephant in the room. October 2016, Philadelphia. This scene is very short and it's literally just Ilya playing a game and he's losing and he's really pissed off and he's in a really bad mood, and then up on the screen he sees highlights from Shane's match being played and he sees that like Shane kicked a goal and was celebrating and he felt happy. That's the scene. October 2016, Montreal. This is also a kind of random short scene, I guess, showing Shane's life outside of hockey or sex. He's like at this park with his friend slash teammate called Henry. Oh my gosh, his name's Hayden. Like, he's such a shit character. I forgot his name. So Hayden's like married with kids, and you kind of get the vibe that he is really bored and kind of vicariously living through Shane, and he's super cringe. The secondhand embarrassment that I get from Hayden is horrendous, and I'm already very much an embarrassment on my own. Anyway, he like tries to hook Shane up with like his wife's friend, and Shane's like, no. And that's the scene. October 2016, Montreal. We then get another random scene, which is, I guess, our chance to see Ilya's life outside of hockey and sex. So he's just like chilling on the couch and he has like the TV playing in the background. It's on ESPN, and then a segment comes on with a interview like slash program they did with Shane, where he's like at this cottage he has, which is kind of like his resort, like little place to go and, I don't know, be rich. And it's like near his parents' house, but it's still sort of in the middle of nowhere, like beside this lake. And he kind of talks about how that's like his happy place and being near family means a lot to him and everything. And it's kind of just like this sappy, very overly scripted clip. And he talks about how that's where he spends his summers. So it's kind of sad in contrast to the environment and slash people that Ilya spends his summer breaks with. And before the scene ends, it says how like Shane like smiles on the screen and then Ilya's stomach does a little flip, which was actually cute. It's like, oh, we actually get something wholesome. And then the next scene's just how many times can you come in like an hour. November 2016, Boston. This time when Shane goes to hook up with Ilya, it talks about how he has a roommate, which is like never mentioned before. So I don't know if randomly this time they're like sleeping in rooms with other people, or this entire time he hasn't been brought up. But anyway, it's like, oh, his roommate is Hayden, and they have like a conversation before he leaves. And again, it feels really weird because it's like this entire time he's never had a roommate. I'm not gonna make the and they were roommate jokes because I have some level of self-control. But anyway, Hayden's like, oh, you're gonna go meet a friend. Shut up, bitch! And like, you know, is assuming that he's gonna go hook up with some girl and not, you know, Ilya Rozanov. We learn that last season they were actually moving their Boston hookups to Ilya's penthouse instead of just the hotel rooms. So this is where he goes for this hookup. And in the past, Shane had sort of been like, oh, it's like too risky to go to your penthouse. I don't want to go there. But deep down, he was aware that it was because he felt like it was making things a little bit too personal for what he was wanting to do. And obviously before he gets there, he has one of his classic moments being like, we need to stop this. This is going to be the time that I stop this. I'm going to end this. And it's like gotten to the point that even when he's having these thoughts, he's aware of the fact that this is not going to happen. As soon as Shane comes in, Ilya just like walks to the bedroom. The fuck is this? Shane asked as he entered the bedroom. You're not speaking to me anymore? Just expect me to follow you like a dog? Shh, Rozanov said. He tilted Shane's head up and kissed him hungrily. Shane surrendered immediately, pushing his tongue into the other man's mouth and slipping his hands onto the back of his sweatpants. Why did I put a I've got these to be like, okay, this is what I want to read out in the video. I don't know why I went out of my way to highlight so much of that quote, because we did not need to hear that much. Before they progress further, Ilya says that he wants to look at Shane's face when they do it tonight. I don't know. That did things to me. So Ilya asks Shane to go on top so that he can watch him. Shane does that and he puts his hands on Ilya's chest, and then Ilya puts his hands on top of his hands. True love, what can I say? When they're like close to finishing. Oh, why am I so cringe? Anyway, they're about to like have their orgasms. Oh my god, that was even worse. Ilya says, yes, sweetheart. Then we learn why suddenly Shane had a roommate. It's because Ilya does actually invite Shane to stay. Shane's like, I can't do that because my roommate. Ilya's like, it's fine. And then Shane's like, oh, okay. This entire book is just Shane being like, no. And Ilya being like, are you sure? And then Shane being like, okay. So they just like make out on the bed for ages. Cute. And then Ilya gets up and's like, I'll make us food. And he makes like tuna melts. Also, I really like this bit. It's almost like level with the cashmere sweater scene. Like it's like a little bit below and it's also kind of just as irrelevant, but I really like it. Ilya's like, oh, there's like ginger beer in the fridge. And Shane's like, oh, I didn't know that he knew like my favorite drink was ginger beer, and he's kind of like put out by it. He's a piece of shit, so he doesn't actually take the ginger beer, and he like sits down and then Ilya's like, oh, don't forget your ginger beer. And like, I don't know, a few more times he mentions like the ginger beer. So then Shane like goes and gets the ginger beer, like, oh my god, just put the man out of his misery. And after he like has a sip, Ilya's like, oh, is it good? And it's such like Labrador energy. It's like, oh, please look, I got you the thing you like. Look, it's the thing you like. Oh, did you like it? Did you like it? Did you like it? They then eat their tuna melts while watching Buffaloes versus Chicago. So yes, they're like watching hockey in their spare time, which is probably what people do when they play a sport. They probably do actually keep up with games, but in my mind, I'm just like, don't you want a break? Like, I don't want to watch old people be given showers while I'm not at work. That sounded really weird. Let's pretend I didn't say that. Then Ilya starts chatting about hot women, and honestly, can you blame him? Who doesn't like to just chat about hot women? Hot women, guys. Am I right? And he's telling Shane about this like hot woman that he would like hook up with regularly in New York, and how she's like now getting married, so they can't like hook up anymore. So either she randomly just like got engaged out of nowhere, or it apparently didn't matter when she was in a relationship. But either way, apparently now it matters. So Shane asks like, oh, if he's sad about it, and Ilya's like, no, he just thought it was nice to have someone who was consistent. Then Shane kind of opens up about how he struggles with casual hookups because he is so well known. He feels like it's really hard for him to kind of have organic hookups where he's not worried about anything coming out in the media. Ilya then says how, yeah, that's why it's nice to have someone consistent that you can always go to. Ilya then talks about how he likes Shane, but like he then kind of backtracks like, oh, like as like a person to have sex with kind of thing. The idea of him just having said I like you kind of makes Shane spiral a little bit. So Ilya gets a phone call and goes to take it, and Shane is just left like having a moment alone on the couch. It's not really uncommon for him to be somewhere just like having a moment. During his panic, he then has a thought that like nobody makes him feel the way that Ilya does. So then he starts to double panic because he's now not only panicking about the other things, he's now panicking about this thought that he just had. Shane's really relatable. But of course my anxieties are not hot like his. Like I'm not like, oh my gosh, like I'm hooking up with this really hot like rich person who plays hockey. Like my anxieties are like, one time when I was 10, I like blew my nose and like a bit of snot got on my hand, and like this girl in my class saw. My anxieties are not quite as cool. When Ilya comes back from his phone call, he like slides in between Shane and the edge of the couch so that they're like squished together, which like nice move. And then when Ilya starts to guide Shane to his chest, Shane obliges and like lays on his chest. Oh my god. They then hook up again because of course they do. Why do I need this so much? Shane muttered the words against Rosanov's lips and hoped the other man hadn't heard them. And also at one point during their hookup, Ilya actually calls Shane by his first name, which hasn't been done before. Like it's always Hollander. So the fact that he said Shane, it's kind of just like doing things to Shane. That little bit of intimacy really kind of messes with him. So once like he has that after sex clarity, he's kind of just like freaking out. He's like, I need to go. I like have to go. He's like, I ain't gotta go. Ilya's like, oh, like I guess if you want, like he does this whole thing, but I don't know, Shane's hit that threshold where he actually just does leave. But before he goes, like Ilya's trying to console him like, it's fine, like it's nothing, like we're just hooking up. As Shane's leaving, he thinks to himself, but you called me Shane. Bless his little cotton socks. Then when he goes back to his room, Hayden is still awake, which of course he is because he's bored and regretting his life choices and has absolutely nothing to do. And then we get this really funny bit that it's like quite tragic. Basically, Hayden's like wanting to know all about his hookup and he's just basically like piss off. And then he like goes to shower and it's like Shane went into the bathroom to take a shower and freak the hell out in private. And I don't think I've ever heard anything more relatable. Yeah, who's never had a like shower to go freak out in private? November 2016, Montreal. Okay, I'm gonna go over this next bit quickly because this video is already super long and like this part's important, but I don't feel like it's important in massive detail. So basically Shane starts like dating, seeing this woman who is, I kid you not, a famous actress from the movie X Squad. So they meet in November 2016. They like hit it off. And again, I'm gonna kind of gloss over this, but I do just want you all to know that Rose is literally the MVP of this book. December 2016, Detroit. Ilya's like in the change room. Some of his teammates come up and they're like, hey, look at this article, and it's like Shane Hollander and Rose Landry dating, like question mark. And Ilya's just like, first response, he just goes no. None of them even comment on it, but it's like kind of weird. Like, wouldn't you be like, what? Why are you just saying no? He like convinces himself that it's obviously nothing. January 2017, Boston. More and more articles continue dropping about Shane and Rose. They keep being seen in different places, holding hands. And then we get a scene of like Ilya like, panic riding an exercise bike, and I didn't relate to that panic scene. Like the shower, yes, I can relate to that, but I'm lazy, so I don't relate to the exercise bike bit. I'm not hot when I panic, unfortunately. 1 week later, Montreal. So both of their teams verse each other, and it's an hour after the game, and Shane's kind of like expecting Ilya to message him, and he's kind of like waiting, and he's not sure, like, should I go hook up with him? Because technically I'm like sort of dating someone now. We then see that Ilya doesn't actually text Shane, and that's because he is of the understanding that Shane is dating this woman, and so he's not going to obviously instigate a situation for them to hook up. Rose actually ends up asking Shane if he wants to go out to a club. Of course, Ilya's like, hey, let's go out to the club, to some of his teammates. So they both go to the club. Of course, they go to the same club as well. And then we get what is probably the worst scene of the book. They've been at the club for a bit. One of Rose's co-workers on X Squad is hitting on Shane very obviously. And everyone seems fine with it, even though I thought that they were like dating, but I don't know, I guess it's fine. Shane's like dancing with Rose on the dance floor, and then the guy that wants to hook up with Shane comes over, and then he and Rose end up like dancing, and so Shane's kind of left alone, and that's when he notices Ilya. And Ilya's like hooking up, like grinding on some chick on the dance floor. And so Shane like goes over and then just like, he just stands there and like stares at Ilya with this chick. He's even acknowledging to himself, whoa, this is like really weird. I'm just like standing in the middle of a dance floor, like staring at him dancing with this chick. I honestly kind of want to cry when I think about how tragically awful that is. And I was actually doing a live stream with Patreons. We were chatting about the show, which of course I haven't watched. They were talking about how all the things she said by Tattoo is in the show, and like the scene is really good. And I was like, oh my god, let's see if I can guess the scene. And like my third guess was that scene. I was like, oh, is it the scene where like Shane's just staring at him on the dance floor? And like I didn't expect it to be that scene. I was joking, but then actually is that scene. So not only is he like in the middle of a club standing there just staring, it's also to all the things she said by Tattoo. I don't know why that just sends me. You can't make that up. Ugh, classic brilliance. Honestly, humans have peaked. Apparently the scene's actually really good in the show, but the book is not good. When Ilya notices Shane watching, instead of being like, oh my god, this is really creepy, he's like, let's take this somewhere private to like the chick. And then we get this really random scene where she's like, oh, actually like my boyfriend just likes watching me with other people, so I'm actually gonna go sleep with him now. Which was really random, but then like I got thinking about it and I'm like, that's actually really sweet. Like they have such a like consensual thing going on. You know, she obviously knows the boundaries and she sticks to that. And then I realized that that is the true love story of this book. This random couple at the club. Anyway, after Ilya's kind of like rejected, he then looks and Shane's gone. So he like angrily leaves the club and he goes to his room and angrily jacks off in the shower, angrily thinking about Shane. Ugh. And then he like lays down on his bed and he's all in his like angry feels. Oh god, what was wrong with him? Why did he care? Ilya had been ready to let that weird girl with the kinky boyfriend do whatever she wanted with him. What did it matter what Shane was doing when Ilya didn't require him? Except Shane had been watching him make out with that girl, and Shane had looked so fucking good. Not like clothes-wise. Shane's wardrobe was as boring as he was. This is when I was like convinced that Rachel Reed actually hates Shane, because it's like any opportunity she can find to shit on him, she will take. This is like a really intense scene where Ilya's having like a crisis, really opening up to his feelings, but Rachel Reed's like, oh no, I could like shit on Shane there, I guess I'll do that. 1 week later, Montreal. Shane is like deep into his denial about his sexuality, and we're basically seeing that this relationship with Rose is very forced. Rose is like, oh, we should like have a talk, and so she like organizes for them to meet up for breakfast to have a talk, and I'm like, thank fucking God. But it's also sad because this is an existence that a lot of queer people live, where they're just like in denial, not genuine to who they are, and it's like really sad. You're seeing like, this is a life he could have kept living. I don't know, I guess like it would be nice one day if the default was not that we're straight, so it's not like only a part of society has to go through this phase of discovering who they are. It's like, if we could all just be born and we're like open to anything, then we all go through that exploration together. But as it is now, it's like the default is straight, and therefore only some people have to go through this really what can be painful process of figuring out who they are. But this is why Rose is our MVP, because she basically confronts Shane about this, but she does it in such a lovely way. She's basically just like, you know, like, that coworker of mine was really into you, and I'm kind of getting the vibe that you might be more interested in like him than me. Like, maybe you just prefer men over women. Maybe I'm just not like working for you, and like, that's fine. It's okay. Which I think he really needed to hear, and we can see why this like storyline happened, because he really needed, I guess, one last relationship with a woman to really realize he's just not attracted to women. Like, until he finally closed that chapter, he probably couldn't really truly move on, and I guess that was something hindering his relationship with Ilya, was him still trying to discover himself. And I'm really glad that it happened with someone like Rose, who was so on top of it and so willing to have that conversation, but also in such a like comforting, safe way and a reassuring way. Like, it's okay. It's almost like he needed to hear that to know that he could give permission to himself. It's okay to be gay. Same night, Boston. So Ilya is like hooking up with some chick called Svetlana. I don't think she's mentioned before this, but she's one of his like regular chicks that he hooks up with. He likes that he can talk Russian with her and that she doesn't expect anything serious from it. So he kind of likes the vibe that they have. She then asks after they've finished if he wants to go again, and he says no, and then he thinks like, if this was Shane, would I have said yes? So he is definitely kind of being obsessed with thoughts of Shane in this time where they've been kind of torn apart. And it's been 7 years at this point, so it's been a long time. Even though like they're a little bit behind with understanding where their feelings are at, it's been building. Having this thing like separated is definitely a moment for them to really realize how much this matters to them emotionally, how much better their lives are when they are together. January 2017, Tampa Bay. So we're still in the same month and year as the last scene, and this time it is the All-Stars event. And for the very first time, they're actually going to be playing on the same team. Their team is having a meeting, and when Shane walks in, everybody stands up. Ilya's internal dialogue is like, what the fuck? But it's so like tense, they all just like stand up when Shane comes in. But Shane's actually had a bit of a glow up. This scene was kind of tragic for me because it meant no more cashmere sweaters. They then have like a little chat after the meeting, and Ilya kind of just like asks like, oh, how are things with Rose? And Shane's like, oh, we're not together anymore. And he like tells him that he got like a personal assistant to like style him. We then like kind of have a cutscene to different events for the All-Stars because they're on the same team. They get to do like activities together. And then we actually get to see the All-Stars game. And then I realized that like 52% into the book, for a hockey book, we've had like barely any hockey. And this was like the first hockey scene we got that wasn't like 2 sentences. But I actually really liked getting to watch the scene of them playing, and I kind of wish that more of their scenes were covered during games. But I mean, I understand why that's not really feasible because they're trying to keep this under wraps, so obviously not on live television are they just gonna start like making out. Seeing them actually like playing made me really realize, which like this thought has probably occurred to everybody in the first like minute that they watch the show or read the book, but I was like, this really reads like a fan fiction. And then I got like thinking, if this was a fan fiction, who this is like based off of. But then I was like, I don't know any hockey players. All I really watch is AFL, tennis. I couldn't really think of like any people that could have been like inspiring this book. But I was like, oh, I know that like hot V8 supercar driver that's like really hot. I was like, maybe one of the guys is him. And then maybe the other one's that like Australian like golf player with like the mullet. So I was like, maybe it's the hot V8 supercar guy and the golf guy with the mullet. Do we reckon that's who it's based on? Now, I didn't actually write who won the game, so I don't know if their team won or not. But anyway, I skipped to how after the game, instead of joining in all the parties, Shane goes to sit alone on the beach. And then, of course, Ilya joins him on the beach. Without warning, Ilya moved his hand until it was right next to Shane's, and then he hooked their thumbs together. Shane's first instinct was to pull away, but he resisted. Instead, he closed his eyes and tried not to hope for impossible things. He also resisted the urge to rest his head on Ilya's shoulder. Ilya then says that he wants to talk in private and give Shane his room number. And then when Shane does go to his room, we do get what is the most emotionally charged scene since like the tuna melt scene. It's not just me, right? Not just you. I mean, you feel it too, don't you? Feel what? God, fuck you. You know what I mean. The last time we were together, it was different. Ilya shrugged and looked away. He knew it was the wrong reaction, but he felt a horrifying swell of emotion that he couldn't let Shane see. Bless these two that are just terrible at communicating, not only to each other, but to themselves. But we do see some progression. They then kind of get through that hurdle and they actually do start to kind of communicate a bit better. Shane opens up to Ilya about his discovery and realization that he is gay. And then Shane kind of tries to dabble back into the conversation he attempted to have before. I can't keep pretending I don't like you, he said finally. You don't like me, Ilya argued. I do. I maybe like you too much. Ilya's heart clenched. Don't. He groaned. Don't fucking do this, Hollander. I'm not worth it. Ilya glared at him. Gay. I'm not gay. And I can't be anything close to it, okay? Shane laughed. Well, you're doing a shitty job of that. Not in public. I can't. I would not be able to go home. Your family? Russia. I could not go home to Russia. It's just sad to think that that's how so many queer people live. They then continue talking and Ilya kind of opens up about his dad and confirms that his dad does have dementia, and he sort of opens up a little bit about his mother's death. He doesn't really disclose what happened, but he sort of talks about how it affected him. He sank to the floor, straddling Ilya's outstretched legs. Hey, Shane said softly. Ilya gave in and reached for him, and as soon as he had Shane in his arms, he was done for. He leaned forward, and it felt different this time as he wrapped his arms around Shane's back and pulled him close against his body. Shane's hands cradled Ilya's face as he kissed him, with the force of everything they had almost said out loud. February 2017, Montreal. They then text each other for the first time for it not to be related to hooking up. They're celebrating this player getting kicked out of the NHL because he got arrested for like fighting someone at a club, and the reason that they're celebrating is because he's homophobic. So yeah, fuck that guy. March 2017, Montreal. So both of their teams are at the top of the ladder at this point, and both of them obviously want to win the championship. The book hasn't really gone into anything about the sport. It's like only ever mentioned if it's relevant to the scene. We do find out that Shane has won 3 championships and Ilya has won 2. Again, we don't really see that because it's not relevant to them hooking up. And Ilya actually texts Shane asking if they want to hook up before the game, which is like kind of breaking their rule because it's always after the game hookups. And so Shane goes because he's like worried. They then hook up, so good for them. And then Shane keeps asking like if he's okay, but Ilya's kind of just like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. We know he's not. He then confesses that he's actually not doing okay. We like to see the progress. He admits to Shane about how he's been sending his family money and they've recently just called to ask for more money again. And so Shane's like really livid about this. He's like, you should just not return home. You should not go back to Russia. Stay here during the breaks. And we get this scene that was so like devastating but so well written. So he confesses to Shane that he actually likes spending more time with his dad now that he has dementia than he did before. It just makes you think like, what kind of a horrible parent do you have to be for your child to like spending time with you more when you have dementia than when you didn't? That was some really good writing. The next day, Detroit. Shane is getting ready for his upcoming game and his teammates tell him how apparently Ilya has been reported to have not boarded the flight with the rest of his teammates. Shane obviously begins to worry, and so he messages Ilya, but he doesn't get a response. So then he calls him, and I was expecting him not to get an answer, but he actually does. Now that Ilya is actually starting to change and have some development, I'm always kind of just like shocked because I'm like, oh, he's gonna do the good thing. On the phone call, Ilya discloses that his dad has passed away, and that's why he has disappeared because he's gone back to Russia, but he plans to return in 2 days. And Shane's kind of encouraging him to take his time. No need to rush back, but Ilya's sort of like wanting to get the fuck out of there. 2 days later, Buffalo. After being very worried about Ilya, Shane texts and asks if he can call again, to which Ilya says yes. And again, I was really surprised. He gets very vulnerable during the call. He sort of really opens up. He's sort of talking about how he feels like none of his family want him here, none of the family care about him. He's only there because they want basically money from him. And he's sort of struggling to put how he feels into English. And so Shane says, you can talk to me in Russian, like I won't understand, but maybe it'll still help you get it off your chest. And so Ilya does that. He talks in Russian and we get what is such a cute scene. I just thinking about it, I'm like, oh my god. After the call, he's like freaking out because he's like, what if like Shane actually recorded it and he's gonna put it through the translator, and he's like freaking out, thinking about how embarrassing it would be for him to hear all of these things he was like confessing about his dad and everything. And then also this bit gets added on.
Не так, как я люблю тебя. Я так сильно тебя люблю и не знаю, что с этим делать.
Oh my. The next day, Montreal. We then have another scene of Shane calling Ilya, and this time he's quite drunk. And he's very much talking about how he can get US citizenship, because he's basically realizing, I don't need to come back here. I don't want to come back here. And so he's kind of like brainstorming ways that he can get a US citizenship. At the end of the call, Shane actually invites Ilya to come stay with him for the summer at his cottage. You know, Ilya's just like, I don't know, I'll think about it. The next day, Moscow. As Ilya is packing to leave the next day, he realizes like, hey, I don't need my condo anymore because like, I don't plan to come back here. So he like plans to give his condo to his brother. I know this is like being a bit nitpicky. I'm just like panicking. I'm like, why are you doing that? What happens if you have to go back? What happens if you're not able to get US citizenship? What happens if you have to move back to Russia? You haven't got a place. But then I'm also like, oh, he's super rich, like he can probably get one straight away. But still, it's like, why would you not keep your place? That's really stressful. Then they have some Skype sex, so I guess there's nothing more 2017 than a bit of Skype sex. And Ilya is also like panicking, you know, I need to read over our contract. What if it's like we're not actually allowed to like date other players? Like what if I then, you know, have to move back to Russia because my contract's voided and therefore I'm not able to stay in the US? And it's like, maybe you should keep your condo then. April 2017, Montreal. The final match of the season is between both of their teams, and the two have only talked a little bit over text since their Skype sesh. Never thought I would be like talking about Skype in video. Next we'll be talking about MySpace. I actually miss MySpace so much. MySpace was such a vibe. When they're at practice where like people are watching and everything, Ilya like skates over to Shane and like talks to him. And it was another moment where I was like, are we supposed to believe that no one's like suspicious of any of this? Like the fact that they're these two super hyped up players hating each other, surely there would be like tumblers out there. I can't imagine it being like nobody even saw this coming. Like surely there were like teenage girls that were all over this shit. The tumblers would be like Chanilya lovers or like Holozanov forever. Do you reckon if I like made a Tumblr of the hot V8 supercar guy and the golfer with the mullet, like, do you think anyone would follow? Would any of you follow that? I've got some great like Windows paint skills I can whip up. Anyway, back to the story. Ilya goes up to Shane and asks if they're like on for tonight and everything. And of course Shane's like, yes. Ilya leaves and then Hayden comes over. And like Hayden is such a sticky beat. Hayden, I don't know, get a hobby, like plant a plant in a pot and water it. I don't know. Do something, Hayden. But yeah, of course he like skates over and he's just like, what was that about? What did he want? And the fact that he's being so like nosy about it, I'm also like convinced that if there is a Holozanov forever Tumblr, Hayden's the one that made it. We then get another scene of like where we get to see some of the game and it's like pretty heated. There's a few points where they like take the puck off each other. Then the game gets even more dramatic because this guy called Cliff Harlow, like fuck Cliff Harlow, he like nudges Shane really aggressively and Shane like is flung and like his head hits like the board on like the side of the stadium and so he like collapses. Ilya is there like, oh my gosh, you okay? Shane's like, Ilya, no, don't talk, stop, everyone, like people can see us. It's like nobody watched that and was like, that's weird. May 2017, Ottawa. So neither Shane or Ilya's teams get into the finals and so they actually text while watching. So they're watching separately but they text while they watch. And most of their commentary has been about shitting on this guy called Scott Hunter because he's boring. So I can really see that their like post-hockey careers are really bright in commentating. New York actually end up winning, which is Scott Hunter's team. So they're like, oh fuck that guy, like he wins. As Scott Hunter is celebrating while being like videoed live on TV, this guy comes up and he just like kisses this guy. Obviously she and Ilya are like freaking out. The guy turns out to be his boyfriend, so he's actually dating another guy and nobody cares. Nobody really comments. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that's cool. This is obviously very reassuring for both Ilya and Shane because nothing bad's happening. Like no one cares. And then we get what is probably the most iconic line of this book. Ilya just sends Shane a text saying, I'm coming to the cottage. And it's like, July 2017, Ottawa. So Shane picks Ilya up and drives them to the cottage. And then like when they get to the cottage, Shane is typical Shane and it's like really cringe and he's like blabbering about random shit. Ilya's used to it at this point, so he kind of just like ignores the moment that Shane's having and just like goes up and kisses him. And of course they hook up. Mine. Ilya's breath tickled Shane's skin when he spoke the single word. Yours, Shane said dreamily. All of this, for 2 weeks, is mine, forever. Shane wanted to say, forever if you ask. They then go out and cuddle on the couch for ages before they then hook up again. And before they hook up for the third time, they do like skate around on this like synthetic rink that Shane has at the cottage. He just has like a synthetic rink at his like summer holiday cottage. And it's like, if I have a really long day at work and I'm really tired and hot, I feel guilty for buying like an ice cream. It's just a life I cannot even fathom. Following evening, Ottawa. Everything's going really well at this point and we're nearing the end of the book. So of course I'm like, okay, so everything's about to go to shit. So they spend that day like kayaking on the lake and then Shane makes burgers. We then get the loon scene, which is... I don't even know how to describe the loon scene. Basically, a loon is a bird. And it makes a noise that's really loud and it scares Ilya because he thinks it's a wolf. Shane's like laughing at him because he's like, no, it's just a loon. And he's like freaking out that they're gonna die and be mauled by this like wolf. You know what? I haven't actually listened to what a loon sounds like. Okay, which is it? Is it the blah, 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 or the literal wolf sound? I don't know. Apparently both are the sound of the loon. You know, I wasn't actually expecting that. I was more expecting something like a koala. Okay, that's enough. Yeah, so loons actually just sound like wolves, but I was picturing something like that. Okay. I need a minute. Then we have a really weird transition because we go from the loon scene to like a really serious scene. And I also feel really weird transitioning from that in this video because I'm still a little bit hysterical over the koala. Why? I mean, it's a wild animal, but like, why does it do that? The next scene is very serious. Ilya starts opening up to Shane about his mother's death and he kind of talks about how her death was labelled as an accident from overdosing on pills, but everyone knew that it was not accidental. That's a really sad bit. I wasn't actually really expecting that. I hadn't really thought much about what happened. Losing a parent in any way is horrific, but I suppose from suicide is a different kind of horror. We then after this get what's probably my least favorite scene of the book. I kind of hate this scene and I'm really just gonna skim over it. Basically, Shane's on the phone to Hayden, which like Hayden is so bored, he's now like calling Shane. Basically, Ilya starts like touching Shane's dick while he's on the phone and Shane's kind of like, please don't do that. And then he has to like pause the call and Ilya's like, oh, like, I know you want it. And it's like, okay, that's the thing that's said. Ilya's like, okay, well, I will stop. I won't do it unless you get hard. I don't think I really need to go into why. That's fucked. So anyway, of course Shane gets hard and he keeps doing it and then he ends the call with Hayden and they hook up and I feel very uncomfy and I really hate that part and I hope it's not in the show. Then the book kind of gets even more repetitive than it has been at points because basically the two just go on and on and on and on about their future. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna make this work? Should we make this work? Should we do this? And like, I get it. This is a big thing and you would be thinking about it a lot, but there's kind of ways that you can write this without it just like being repetitive and writing the same things over and over. You can capture the fact that they're worrying and having like repetitive thoughts without us having to actually experience them. I am losing my voice. I'm going to continue pushing through. But eventually Shane does come to this like idea of starting a charity and they start it together. And he says like he's always wanted to start a charity, but I mean, this is like the first time it's like mentioned, but it's like, okay, I guess we just believe that you've always wanted to start a charity. I guess at the end of the day, you have so much money, you've made enough synthetic rinks and everything that you do have the money to start a charity and share the wealth. Anyway, he uses charity to figure out a way to be able to be with his boyfriend. It's like we can start a charity and if we do it together that way, there's a reason why we'll be seen together because it's like, oh, we're working on the charity. When your contract ends at the end of the season, you can request to join this Canadian team. If you get accepted, then you'll be able to live in Canada and you'll be close to me. It's only like a 2-hour drive. Yeah, we can use this charity as a way to kind of be together and we can use the charity as a reason why we are sort of friends and then it would ease people slowly into us possibly when we retire, revealing that we're in a relationship. He's thinking of making the charity be about like mental health himself, and he says like, you know, we could name it after your mother, which I think is a really nice little touch. And then we get penultimate scene that we've all been waiting for. This is where like finally our goal is achieved, because they confess their feelings. And it's good. Ilya turned back and quickly rolled on top of Shane and was kissing him and kept murmuring the same thing in Russian over and over again until he pulled back and translated. I love you. Shane froze. And then Ilya froze. Holy shit, Shane whispered. It wasn't how he had meant to respond. Ilya's eyes were so wide and so scared. I love you too, Shane said. Ilya gave a shaky smile and exhaled. Thank Christ. Does it feel like agony for you too? Ilya started to nod, then stopped. He shook his head slowly instead. Not anymore. They then go and swim in the lake, and it's really cute because they're just like holding each other, like Shane's like resting on Ilya's chest and they're like just relaxing in the water together, and it's really cute. But Shane also does say like, oh, we need to be careful because like people could see us out here, we're more exposed. And then he gets like 2 phone calls, and remember, I'm like freaking out. I'm thinking, oh my god, this is where it ends, like something terrible's gonna happen, so I've just assumed that they've been caught. Anyway, they get out of the water and Shane doesn't even check his phone. Oh my god, you heard you get the 2 phone calls and you're still not checking it. But they go inside and then they're like making out because it's like basically what they do all the time. And then the dad walks in. So Shane's dad has walked in on them. Finally, someone has spotted them. After 7 years of this, it was a pretty good effort. And the dad like freaks out and leaves. And so Shane's like freaking out and he's like, oh my god, I need to go like talk to my parents. Because again, like the cottage is near the parents' house. Obviously this was gonna happen. Ilya's like, do you want me to come with you? And it was really cute. And Shane's like, yeah. And so they go over there together and the parents get on board pretty quick. Like at first they are like, what the actual fuck? And they sort of disclose their plans with Shane's parents. And it's really funny because his mom is just kind of like on board until it gets to Ilya leaving Boston Bears, because she's just like the betrayal, the lack of loyalty. And then they go back to the cottage and hook up, because of course they do. And then this happens. Epilogue. 6 months later, Montreal. Yeah, it's the epilogue. Like nothing bad has happened. Normally I'd be fine with that. I actually don't like third act breakups. I'm aware, right, that there is a whole other book about this couple, but it ends happy. So I'm kind of like, how is there another book? Because I was assuming that they broke up at the end of this and then the next book would be them getting back together, but they're still together. And I'm just like, why is there another book? But, you know, I have come to accept that that's how the book goes. So we then get like one last scene where the two are on a talk show announcing their charity. So Ilya has now transferred to the different team, and so they're ready to kind of go forward with their plans. And basically the only other person that is aware of their relationship aside from Shane's parents is Hayden. Basically, they are using Hayden. I mean, they don't disclose that this is happening, but just from the scene that we get, I'm assuming that they're using Hayden to kind of guard doors when they hook up, because after they go through the talk show, they both go into a bathroom and Hayden is like blocking the door to make sure no one goes in because they're like having a moment. When he was like trying to live vicariously through Shane, I don't really think this is what he had in mind. We then see them versing each other in a game and they get into a massive fight, and I don't really know what the point of that scene is, because it's like, okay, I thought that you were trying to convince people that you were friends, so I don't really see why you two fighting in this game is helping anything, so I really don't know why that was there. And then as the book ends, we learn that Shane has sold his creepy 3-story building in the middle of nowhere, which thank God, and he now owns a nicer house, and Ilya has purchased a place as well, which is by the Ottawa River. So at least they have a nice refined hookup location now. So yeah, the book just kind of ends. I understand that, okay, the next book is going to be about them learning to have their relationship and obviously come out to the world with their relationship, but it's kind of just like, did we need another book for that? There's like barely any incentive to continue reading. I have seen these two hook up so many times. Like, I've got nothing left. I think I'm done. But I liked this book, despite some of my complaints. I think it's cute. I think it's unique in its setting of taking place over 7 years. There was just a lot that made me want to keep reading. There were definitely lots of little cute highlights. It's definitely sort of a more queer celebration story with still being realistic with things, but not focusing on it, which I always appreciate. And I mean, I love a romance book. So yeah, I'm gonna piss off now. Stay safe, everybody. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to my lovely, funny, amazing patrons who are the best. I'm so thankful for your support. Thanks, guys.